Hello everyone, my name is Amit Singh and welcome to my channel. Today we are gonna discuss about the second module in the SIP trunk deployment course, and in this module what we are gonna discuss is about the configuration of the SIP trunk between the Cisco Unified Communications Manager and the Cisco Unified Border Element. Not only the SIP trunk, but we are also going to talk about the dial plan. How do you route the calls from the Cisco Unified Communications Manager to the Cisco Unified Border Element. So to the beginners, please watch the video until the end because there are very good informations that will help you in your day-to-day operations. So make sure you watch the video till the end. Let's get quickly started. So let's log into the Cisco Unified Communications Manager, the username and password. So the first thing that we would configure is something called as a SIP profile for the SIP trunk, because it could be that there are several locations in your company and for each location there is a different SIP trunk, and for each SIP trunk a provider has some different requirements or the location has some specific requirements. So to adapt that, I don't want to use the standard SIP profile. What I do is I will just copy the standard SIP profile, so default SIP profile. I just copy this and I will, for our configuration, let's say I have a location called as RTP in US. I would name it as RTP SIP profile, and then I will say RTP SIP profile. Let's make it better. I will say RTP ITSP or Cube SIP profile, and then I will also say here RTP Cube SIP profile, and the rest of the things I will keep it by default for now, and I would change it as and when needed. If it's not needed, I will just keep everything default other than enables options ping. So what enables options ping would do is it will send always a ping at every 60 seconds, so every minute, to the Cube and check if I am okay, I'm registered, I'm alive, are you alive or not, so that you could know the status of the SIP trunk registration between the Cisco Unified Communications Manager and Cube. Okay, so now we have configured a SIP profile. Let's go ahead and configure a SIP trunk. So we go to device trunk. So this SIP trunk would be not directly to the provider but to the Cube. You could also do it to the provider, but then you will have very less features and it's not secure and a lot of other things. So that's why we would configure a SIP trunk between CUCM and Cube, and then from Cube to the service provider. So Cube we'll do add new here, and then we will select SIP trunk, click on next, and then let's just name this SIP trunk, and I will say RTP Cube SIP trunk. Okay, and then by default it takes like this, but make sure you have a clear description what it's meant for, and I will just get it more elaborated, and I'll say for ITSP. Okay, I'll just check PSTN access so that I know that it's for the PSTN, and I will say run on all active Unified CM nodes. I forgot to create one of the CSS for an incoming call. I would create one of the CSS. For now, let's just keep it none. And the other thing that I would change or add is the destination IP address. So the IP address of the Cube internal interface. So I know that my internal Cube interface IP address is 198.18.128.11. So that's my internal interface to Cube. So I'm using an unsecure port 5060 between Cisco Unified Communications Manager and CUBE for the SIP signaling, and the SIP trunk security profile, I will say non-secure SIP trunk profile. Okay, let's just keep it standard non-secure SIP trunk profile, and then we'll add the SIP profile that we have configured, RTP CUBE SIP profile. Okay, sorry, I think I didn't select device profile. Let's keep it a default device profile, but make sure you select the right device profile for your location, whatever you have. So in some cases, for a gateway, the companies have a different device pool than for the devices itself. Like for phones, they have a different device pool, and for the gateways, they have a different device pool depending upon the need of the media resource group lists and everything. So make sure you understand those things as well. I will be talking about those informations as well in deep in my further sessions, but for now I'm just concentrating on creating a SIP trunk to a provider and get it up and running, and let's see how it works. Okay, so now we have configured a SIP trunk. The, the next step that would be done here is to create something called as a route group. That's the better idea. You do not directly assign the trunk to a route pattern, but you assign a route list, right? Add new, and I'll just name this route group as RTP CUBE route group or RTP PSTN route group, whatever. So I will say CUBE route group so that we know it's going to the RTP CUBE, and I will here say RTP CUBE SIP trunk, and I will add this SIP trunk to this route group. Save it. Now we will assign this route group to the route list. So we'll go to route hunt, route list, create new or add new. We will name this route list as RTP PSTN route list, and we will select a default Cisco Unified Communications Manager group, and then we will add the route group to the route list. So I will select RTP CUBE route group. So here there is some difference. You saw that in the drop down there is something called as a standard local route group and RTP CUBE route group. So what does this standard local route group do? Let's talk about that. So basically what happens is, just let me open my whiteboard. All right, so here what you will have is standard local route group option, or you have the option to select your SIP trunk. All right, so what happens in case of standard local route group? So for example, this is my phone 1001, and he is trying to reach any PSTN number. Okay, so the call will match a translation pattern, and then it will match a route pattern, and in the route pattern it matches this route list called as RTP PSTN route list. Okay, and in this RTP PSTN route list, what happens is I have the option to say either configure standard local route group, or so there are two options here. So I can configure standard local route group, or I configure directly the route group that we have configured. So RTP CUBE route group. Okay. So CUBE route group. So in this case, what happens is the standard local route group is configured, and then this standard local route group will go to the device pool of that device, and in this device pool of this device, it will see what is configured under the route group. in the route group option which gateway is configured. So it's possible that I have configured RTP cube route group, and then it will use this zip trunk and then go to the ITSP. Now, what is the difference between using the standard local route group and using the normal route group route list? The difference is when you have a lot of sites using the same dialing pattern or a dial plan, So, for example, if you have 20 sites and these 20 sites are using the same dial plan for the PSTN calls, So what you could do is you could just configure one route list and then just configure the standard local route group, and then they will take their own local route group. So for example, if it was a user in NY, if this user was in NY, so it will also use the same translation pattern. So you do not have to configure 25 different translation patterns. You do not have to configure 25 different route patterns, and then you do not have to configure 25 different route lists, So you just configure one translation pattern, you just configure one route pattern, and then you just configure one route list, and then it uses a standard local route group, and then it goes to that device's device pool. So in this case, it would go to NY device pool that I was talking about, and in the NY device pool, it will not find RTP cube route group. It is that in the NY device pool, it is defined as NY cube and not the RTP cube. So this way you could very easily simplify your dial plans and reduce the complexity, So instead of configuring 75 different things or maybe 100, you just configure one at each step, one translation pattern, one route pattern, one PSTN route list. So you do not configure RTP, then you might say global PSTN route list, So if it's a European dial plan, you just have one. If it's a US dial plan, you just have one, instead of then 150 patterns, translation patterns and everything, you just configure two. So it really simplifies your dial plan and your work. So make sure you make use of this standard local route group. Okay, so let's go ahead. For now, I will configure just a normal route group with the cube route group inside it, and we will not be using standard local route group because it doesn't make sense if you just have one location, So I have just added the name here, or the route group, sorry, and then I will say save in the route list. Okay, the route list has been saved. I will say run on all active unified communications manager nodes. If you just have one route group, apply. That's it. Now your route list is configured. Now just let's configure a dial plan so that the people would be able to dial the PSTN numbers. So basically, most easiest way what people do is configure something called as a translation pattern, and in this translation pattern you usually create the pattern which people actually dial from your phone. For example, if you're dialing an access code of 8, and then let's say followed by 1 and then 4 or anything. If it's a US dial plan, so it would be anything between 2 through 9, right? And then the next two digits could be again anything between 0 to 9, and then the next digit would be again anything between 2 through 9, right? And then the last 6 digits could be anything. So this is how people would dial. So if you have an access code of 9, so you could say 9 and then followed by the rest of the things that we have configured here. So this is how the translation pattern would be configured, and then you would say, okay, this is the translation pattern. Now what I would like to do is remove this access code of 8. So I want to remove this access code of 8 when the call goes outside, because my provider says I need this number in the plus E164 format, so plus E164 format. In case the provider says I need the number in the plus E164 format, then what you could do is in the translation pattern, remove this 8 and then add +1 before the complete local or national number, so remove 8 and add +1. This is what you could do. But in our today's dial plan, what we'll be doing is I'm making it a little bit complex, but you could keep it as simple as possible. So what the provider expects is to send the complete number with 8 and then the rest of the digits. So I thought of making it a little bit complex so that you guys understand how you could remove and add digits and translations and everything. So what we would do today is we'll really remove the access code 8 as of now, and then add +1 in the translation pattern so that it becomes a plus E164 number. And then we will create a route pattern, a global route pattern, for this plus E164 format, and then send it to cube. All right. And then in the cube, what we'll do again is remove this +1. So this way you will learn how you could do a manipulation, digit manipulation in CUCM, and then how you could make use of the translation rules in the voice gateway or cube, and how you could manipulate the digits. So in cube, we will remove this +1 and then add 8 again. Okay, so we will add the access code 8 again to this long distance number, so that the provider will then see this number, which is 8 and then 1, followed by then any digit between 2 through 9, and then any other 2 digits, and then it would be 2 through 9, and then again the last 6 digits. Okay, so this would be the number that would be then sent to the ITSP. All right, ITSP. I hope this is clear now. So let's move forward and then let's create this translation pattern with 8 dot, because we will be dialing 8 followed by the rest of the numbers for the long distance calling. We are not going to do the international configuration. We could do it, but today we'll be doing only a long distance PSTN call routing configuration. All right, so let's go to translation pattern, click on add new, and then add this access code that I will dial from my phone. I will pick up my phone and I'll dial 8 followed by the digit 1, and it could be then any digit between 2 through 9. This is the North America numbering plan, and then followed by any 2 digits, and it could be anything, and the next digit would be again anything between 2 through 9, and then the last 6 digits. So you see here that I put something called as a dot here. Now what is a dot? Why is it used for in this translation pattern? So by using this logic of putting a dot, what I could do here is I would say discard digit pre-dot. you know. So when I do a discard digit pre-dot, what happens is it will remove this 8 and then forward the rest of the numbers to the, sorry, forward the rest of the numbers to the route pattern. Okay. Now, how will a translation pattern access the route pattern? It will access the route pattern via a CSS. Okay, for calling any number. So now the number becomes, for example, we have a translation pattern, and I will give it a partition as PSTN national partition. Okay, it has a PSTN national partition now. So the phone who will be dialing this number should have this CSS in its partition. Okay, I'll show you a phone and partition and CSS. Let's see if the phone has access to this partition so that it could dial the long distance call. Okay. So if you see here, this device has the CSS called as call everyone. Okay, the phone has this CSS called as call everyone. Now let's see if this call everyone CSS has the partition, which is the PSTN national partition. All right. So let's go to the class of control CSS. I've just opened this call everyone CSS, and then let's see if this CSS has the PSTN national partition. Yes, it has the PSTN national partition. That means this phone, so this user phone jabber. So we'll be using a jabber for testing, So this jabber has a call everyone. I will just write down a short form. It has the CSS with the partition for national calling. So national partition, and then it is trying to reach the translation pattern with the pattern 8, 1 followed by 2 through 9 and then XX and then the rest of the digit. I will not write down that. Okay, and this translation pattern is also in the PT -nat. So sorry, national partition. Okay, that means this phone can reach this translation pattern. All right, so it's reachable. That's what we have confirmed right now. Now let's go ahead and configure a route pattern. Oh, before we do that, I think I missed something in the translation pattern. And what did I miss? I removed this 8 access code by doing a pre-dot, but I didn't add the plus to send it to the cube, so I would say so that it would be converted into an plus E164 format, right? Okay, now our partition is all right, and I mean the translation pattern is all right. Let's go ahead and create a route pattern. I would create a route pattern with the format \+ exclamation. Okay, so what it does is this / is to escape this character. So it's not a logic. This plus is not a logic. This plus is a part of the number pattern that is being received. That's why we put a \ here, and this exclamation means any number of digits. So it's a variable. So it could be 1 digit, 2 digit, 4 digit, So it will wait for the interdigit timeout until all the digits have been received, and then it will try to match this route pattern. Okay, so the next thing is you should keep this route pattern into a particular partition. So let us just go ahead, before even creating a route pattern, let us just go ahead and create a a partition for this route pattern, class of control, partition, add new. Let's just give it a name, global or RTP PSTN partition. RTP global PSTN partition, that means it would be used by all the formats of calling. So it would be national, international, or whatever. Okay. So I've just created a partition and make sure we have a CSS. So let's just create a CSS. Just add new. And then we will say RTP global PSTN CSS, and I will assign this RTP global PSTN partition to it. All right, and now let's just go ahead and create a global route pattern for the PSTN calling. Add new, as I discussed last time, plus exclamation, and then I will keep it in this RTP global PSTN partition. All right, and then just give it a good description. I will say PSTN calls or global RTP PSTN calls, so that it is for all the calls. It's not for a single call. It could be anything. It could be local, it could be national, it could be international, you know. All right, and then we will select a route list that we have created. So RTP PSTN route list, and the call classification is already selected as of net because we are doing a PSTN call. And then if needed, depending upon your company's requirement, if you want to change something, so you could say, okay, I want to use external phone number mask for showing or displaying my phone numbers or anything. But for now, let's keep it everything default. We don't change anything here. Okay. So now we have configured everything. But do you think the call will still reach the cube if we do that? If we do it, let's just see. Okay, so I will just use a dial number analyzer. So in this dial number analyzer, what I have done is I have selected the phone that I will be using for making an outbound call. Going to analysis, analyzer, and then select a device there, and then I will say that number of digits that I will be dialing. So that's the best tool that you could use to check if everything is okay. I will not say the best tool, but you can say at least, or check at least, if your routing is fine in the CUCM, you know, if you have the correct dial plan being configured, at least the basic things. All right, so the number that we'll be trying today is 8180055324447. Okay, so let's see if M Cheng is able to dial this number. Okay, and the match result says here that it's the block pattern. All right, now why is this a block pattern? Let's just understand. Let's go to the call flow, and in the translation pattern it says it's matching 812, the right translation pattern. It's matching the right translation pattern. But what happens after matching the right translation pattern? It matches the right translation pattern, and the call number is +1 and 800. But what after that? Where is the route pattern? Why is it not matching the route pattern? Because you see here, matched pattern, nothing. It's not matching the route pattern. Why? We have the route pattern and it's still not matching. So what's the cause? The cause is this route pattern is in the partition RTP global minus PSTN minus PT. Okay, so once the translation pattern has done its transformations and everything, matched the pattern and did a pre-dot to remove 8 and then added a plus, it needs to reach to the route pattern. How will it do it? So it will use the CSS information, but we have no CSS here, right? So we need to assign the right CSS so that the route pattern is accessible by this translation pattern. Okay, so we will configure the CSS that we have configured, that is RTP global PSTN CSS, and save it. Now this RTP global PSTN CSS, let's have a look again. It has access to the partition RTP global PSTN partition. And if we have a look at the route pattern, so the pattern that we have created is this. And voila, you see here that the route partition is also having the partition as RTP global PSTN partition. And now the phone can, or the translation pattern can reach the correct route pattern. Let's do a analysis again into the dial number analyzer. And now here you see that it says route this pattern. That means there was a partition, or a CSS missing, or the access missing for the translation pattern to reach the route pattern. And this is why you might have got the error message as the call cannot be completed as dialed, And now you will see the correct call flow, the translation patterns being matched, and then there is a called party transformation that's happening in the translation pattern. It's removing an 8, the access code, and it's adding plus, and then it's matching here the route pattern. And in the route pattern, what's happening is it's not doing any transformation, so number remains as it is, and then the route pattern matches the route list that we have assigned it, and then it matches the correct route group. And in the route group as well, there is no translation happening, and then it reaches the zip trunk because the route group has this RTP cube route group has the zip trunk that we have configured, and then through this zip trunk the call goes to the destination IP address that we have configured in the zip trunk. So what is the destination IP address that we have configured in the zip trunk? Let's just check. So the destination IP address that we have configured on zip trunk is this 198.18.128.11, and this is the LAN IP address of the queue. So now from CUCM perspective, everything is configured, all right? And you see that the trunk is still not active. And why is it not active? Is because we haven't yet configured the queue part, right? So once we configure the queue part, then we will see that this trunk comes up, and then we will be able to send and receive the calls. So this was it on the enterprise configuration side of the thing. In the next video, we will have a look how we could configure the basic zip trunk configuration on the queue. All right. Have a good time. Bye-bye.